Check out this bike, 1989 Yamaha YZ250. Got this thing for 900 bucks. So the seller stated that he bought this from the original owner. So this is a two-owner bike. The seller stated in the ad that he was riding this thing one day and all of a sudden it shut down and it was really hard to start back up. He said he can pop start it, but it runs kind of crappy and smokes a ton. Alright, that's a no-go. There's definitely resistance kicking over the Kickstarter. Almost like it's binding up a little bit. Looks like brand new oil. Topped off. Let's see if there's an air filter. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Oh, it's filling up fast. Gas flow. And it's mixed. We have good spark. Let's see if we have compression. Alright, well, it's definitely low compression. We're like 100 PSI. Not good. So that's why it's not starting. We're finally back with the 1989 Yamaha YZ250. If you guys watched the last video on this bike, which I believe was like 2 months ago now, we picked this thing up for 900 bucks. The seller stated that he bought this bike from the original owner. The original owner took really good care of it, fixed a lot of the stuff on the bike, and maintained it really well. So I guess the seller was riding this bike one day after buying it, and the bike stopped running. He went to go start this thing back up, and it would not fire. He continued to try to start it for like the next couple of weeks, and he said it would not fire up. So he ended up selling it to me for the $900. I got back home, started diagnosing it, and found right away that the compression was low, or way lower than it should be. It was sitting at 90 PSI. And these bikes are supposed to have anywhere between 150 and 200 PSI. So it was really low. We decided to tear on the engine and investigate, and we found a couple different things. So engine right now is out of the frame, over here on the bench. It's been sitting here for 2 months. So right off the bat, we found that the piston was nicked up in a couple different spots. You can see right there, and that little piece right there actually scored the cylinder as well. And I believe that's why I had lower compression. But we took apart the top end and none of the piston was broken off. So we're like, where did the metal come from? Because none of the piston was broken. So we tore down the engine further, split the case, and we found that the main crank bearing here was breaking apart, going into the crankcase, being lifted up by that rod into the piston, and scoring the cylinder in the piston. So the whole problem was the crank bearing. Unfortunately, all the metal pieces in here went into the rod here and pretty much wrecked the rod bearing as well. So the whole bottom end was pretty much junk. Cylinder was junk, piston was junk. The cylinder had to be sent out. We had to get a new piston, we had to get a new rod pushed onto the crank, all new gaskets, all new seals, all new bearings. So yeah, the engine was pretty much junk. But I figured, being a one-owner bike, it was probably worth rebuilding. So today's goal is going to be to rebuild this whole engine, get it back into the frame, start it up for the first time, and take it for the first ride. But we have a ton of work to do, so let's get going on it. And we'll see if we can get this bike running today. Alright, we're going to start with the left side case half here. We've got the crank bearing we have to take out, crank seals, those were pretty rough as well. And then all the other seals we have to take out as well. These bearings were fine. These never got exposed to the metal in the crankcase here, so those were all good. We checked those over. That seal popped out a little too easy, but there's the old crank seal. And we've got the bearing here we can push out, but let's get the seal out here as well. There's that one, a little crusty, and that one was barely on there. Yeah, look at this crank bearing. Thing is toast. We'll clean up these areas pretty good. I'd be using my parts washer, but we're waiting on the chemicals to use for that, so next video we'll probably be using that. Clean up these areas really nice. This one's gonna go right in here. This one goes right here. Just pushed in. All right, just gonna press this crank bearing out here quick. You can see all the flakes behind there. So we'll clean that out really well. Listen to that thing. Lots of slop in there. Now we're scrubbing the case with a wire brush. That's a brass brush and some WD-40. WD-40 is a really good cleaner, so let's be using that and we'll just go to town. So a parts washer would be a lot easier because you can just dunk it in the water and be done with it. So we really need to get that up and running, but in the meantime this will work just fine. It's not too bad. All right, that looks pretty good. All cleaned up. All right, let's move on to the right side case half. This is the bearing that completely went. You can hear how bad that sounds in there. But we're gonna get the transmission out first. So this whole thing can come out. This little clip comes off. Like that. You've got your gear here. Comes right off. Looks like there's a washer behind there too. One in front, one in back of that gear. Go. Alright, now we can flip this around and take out the transmission. So I like to tie these off just so the gears don't fall down here. Alright, so we can pull out these pins first, just like that. Like that. We want to keep track of what the shift forks are, so that one's number 2. It goes that way. So we'll put that back onto the rod here, and then we can get our other fork out. So that's a number 1. Like that. Put that on here. Then we've got your shift drum. You can probably pull out of here just like that. Make sure that bearing's nice and smooth. That feels good. Then you can get your other fork out. That goes way down. This is how they're gonna look. 1, number 2 fork is over here, and then number 3 is down. This should pull out in one piece here. See if there's any washers behind there. There might be one in the main gear back here. Let's see. Yeah, there's a washer right there. Piece half here. So we can press out the main crank bearing. We got the gasket off already. That looks good. Check that bearing out. Yeah, that was pretty toast. All right, we decided to get the parts washer going. So right now, I can heat up and spray out this nozzle here. We're just gonna dunk this in. Let that soak for a little bit. Got a brush. Stuff is caked on pretty good. Looking pretty clean. I think that's about as clean as we're gonna get it for now. I'm gonna blow everything out with compressed air here. But that, I mean, that is pretty clean. We're gonna re-oil those up. And we're gonna blow through everything with compressed air. All right, this case half is all cleaned up. Looks really nice. So we can now press our bearings in. Nope. All right, bearing obviously did not drop right in. We were able to press that in the rest of the way. It looks pretty smooth. Looks good. Let's see if this one drops right in. I was always told with the crank bearings that you want the letters facing up when installing. Actually, there's barely any pressure being applied here, so it just goes right in. Just make sure the other corner is good here. Turned out really good. All right, we've got the crank seal going in. This is the seal that came with it, the kit for the bearings. And it looks like on the diagram here, I'm looking up the diagram online, you can see the little teeth on the seal here point down. So that's what we're gonna do, point them down and install this that way. See how that's nice and flush? That looks perfect. All right, left side crank seal going in. spring side faces down, just like this. That pushes in pretty nice. You get a little assembly lube and everything. All right, time to install the transmission here. This is going to go in just like this. Get our number 3 in, our fork. Just like that. In. It's going to go in like this. This might be difficult because we've got the little lever down here that compresses that. Alright, so the shift drum should bottom out like that. We can get our shift fork in here. It's going to go this one. Then we can get our number 1. This one rides right here. Number 2 in right there. It's gonna go over here. And this one's gonna ride right down here like that. This is gonna go in the center post here. Now when everything's lined up and in, you can see all the pins are pushed down. Your transmission should spin smoothly and it should not bind up at all. So that either direction you go, it's perfect. Alright, time for the crank installation. So I actually had this sent out to Power Sports Nation. They hooked me up. They did this job for free. I sent them the rod, the Pro X rod, and the old crank, and they were able to press that on, and it looks really good. You can see there's no slop at all. The top and bearing. Perfect. Little side to side. So shout out Power Sports Nation for hooking me up with the crank. That was awesome. I will leave a link to their stuff in the description if you guys want to check them out. Right, crank being pressed in. So with this one, I put the nut on the shaft here so we don't wreck the threads. Let's press this on. Let's press this crank in. Everything's lined up perfectly. It's going in really easily. It's a good sign. Right there, bottomed out. Let's see. Perfect. That looks really good. All right, now the other case halves can go on. Gotta get some gasket maker. We're using the fuel resistant Moto Seal gasket maker here. Get that around the case half. This stuff seems to work really well. I haven't had a leak ever with it. And squish these together. Make sure the transmission spins. Yep, crank is spinning. Cool. All right, let's get the flywheel on next. So, this is gonna go on just like this. Now you can see the line there. Right here is going to line up with that little arrow right there. Those are tight. Alright, arrows lined up properly. Now we can get the flywheel on. So here's the Woodruff key here. Get that on here first. Our flywheel can go on. Then you've got your washer here and your nut. We can get that torque down. All right, starter going in. So this piece right here is gonna click in right here. You've got the little spring. It's gonna go in right to this groove in the right spot. There we go. This comes all the way back over, right to there. All right, get the crank gear on. You can see the extended part goes down on this one. Just like that. And get your smaller one, there's a little bevel there. It goes up. You get your washer and your nut. Get your bushing and your bearings here. Those go on next. And then you've got your clutch basket that goes on after that. And then you've got your other washer that goes on there, like that. And then you've got your inner basket with all the plates that go on. Let's try to get that lined up perfectly. Just like that. And you've got your lock washer, something like that, and your nut. Then you have your clutch push rod, goes in like that. And a little ball bearing. All your springs. All right, we got the cover all cleaned up. We put the new seal in right there. So now we can get some gasket maker on here and get the new gasket on. It's gonna go on just like that. And then we can install the cover here. All right, cover going on. So this governor gear has to line up with the gear here. And then obviously the water pump gear has to as well. So it's a little tricky getting it on. Let's see if we can line her up. All right, bottom end is all together. Let's start working on the top end. So the cylinder was all scratched up before we sent it away to LA Sleeve. They re-sleeved the whole thing back to standard bore. Here's my receipt for that. You can see all the stuff that was done to it right here. You can see install matching heavy duty sleeve. They decarbed the ports, and then they matched up with the Pro X piston. And then expedited shipping was like 90 bucks. So in total, it came to $680. And they got that done in like 3 weeks. It's not horrible. Definitely a lot for a 1989 cylinder, but I wanted this thing done right. There was a little scratch on it on the back side here. So we are going to clean this thing up in the parts cleaner. All right, so here's the cylinder all cleaned up, looking good. They already took the hone to it as well. So now we can quick match up the piston. Here's the piston, Pro X. Let's see if that looks good in there. That's going to be perfect. And you've got your rings here. And these rings have 2 T's on them. It's going to be facing up on the piston. Let's see what the ring gap is at. You can see the ring gap there. Looks to be about 14 thousandths of an inch. Second ring. Same thing, about 14 thousandths. That's gonna be perfect. Then you've got your bearing, top end bearing. Got your wrist pin here. And then you've got your clips. And I believe this one needs to be drilled out. Let's see. No, it does not. There is no bridge, exhaust bridge. So this piston we can run just like this. The other piston had holes on the side, which is kind of interesting. Check that out. 2 holes there, 2 holes there on this one. Yeah, I don't think we need that. All right, power valve's going in. So this piece goes in on this side. And your other piece here. There's an O-ring right there and right down here. So this piece is gonna go in through here. That locks into place. And this goes all the way through to lock it in. That Allen. Get your piece that goes right there. All right, then the other side, there's just that stopper plate right there that holds that down. And now it can rotate smoothly, so that's it for the power valves. Go on just like this. Move up the crank here, the rod. Alright, we got the rings on in place. Piston is going to go towards the front of the engine here, or towards the exhaust. Got our bearing here, it's going to go in here. It's all lubed up. Just get this on. And then we can get the other circlip in the other side. All right, we got the cylinder all lubed up with oil. Let's get the cylinder on. Make sure that spins nicely in there. All right, we got the power valves hooked up, and you can see working. You can see in here. So it lifts up, and then from the exhaust side, that's working good. All right, reeds going on here. All right, let's get the head on. We've got the O-ring gaskets here. And oil those up. Need a whole lot. I like to stretch these just a tad so they fit better. A lot of times they're a little small. Looks good. Perfect. All right, head nut torque specs are 18 foot-pounds. Crisscross pattern. All right, engine is complete. Now I can go back in the bike. All right, that's locked in. Gotta see if we have spark here. First, see if it kicks over. Oh yeah, feels pretty good. There's spark. All right, let's take a look at the carb next. I believe we already cleaned this one out. Just want to check and make sure all the jets are correct. Yeah, she's pretty clean. Let's see, we're running for main jet. 160 for the main. We're gonna see if that's stock or not. Take that out. That was clear. We're running a 55 for the pilot. That is clear. Check out the needle. Needle looks pretty good. Looks brand new. The choke is working. And then we've got our air screw right here. Last one here. Let's see how many turns. One. Exactly one turn out on the air screw. The little spring is in there too. There it comes. That looks perfect. So carb looks really good. All right, so this is obviously not the original carb. You can see it's unbranded. So the original carb on this was a Mikuni carb, and they ran like a 340 main jet, and we're at a 160. I'm guessing this is like a Keihin knockoff carb. So we're gonna put this back on with the jets that were in it. I guess it was running at one point with those jets. We might have to rejet it once we get this thing up and running. All right, carburetor's back on. We've got the pipe on, engine's in, everything's hooked up, ready to go. So let's clean out this gas tank, get some fresh fuel in there, get that installed, and we'll get everything back together here. Attempt to start this up for the first time. All right here on the clutch cover it says 750 milliliters. So let's get some fresh oil in here. We're gonna be using 10W40 wet clutch oil. All right, let's get some coolant in here. See if that leaks. So far, so good. A common leaking point on these bikes are the head gaskets. You can easily pinch those O-rings. So we're hoping we have a leak at the head. So far so good. We'll top that off after the first start. All right, check it out. Bike is all back together, all complete. Thing looks awesome, doesn't it? Pretty clean bike for the year. 1989. These are all new plastics as well, except for the gas tank. So, new seat cover on there, new grips, new bars, new levers. Everything looks really nice on it. New tires as well. Really nice looking bike. All right, if this bike fires up, this will be the first time ever hearing this bike run. So let's see what happens. Well, she fired right up. Sounds really good. Just have to get this thing to idle a little better. It's really low idle. So I think we are going to twist the air screw out a little bit more, allowing more air in. A little rich on the idle there. That sounds better. Sounds pretty good. Alright, she is running perfectly now, idling great. So the air screw is at 2 turns out, and yeah, that was basically all the adjustments we did, and now it's idling perfectly. Revs out completely, at least in neutral. We'll see when we're riding it. Hopefully it doesn't bog, but we'll bring the jet kit along just in case. Alright, made it up to the land. First ride on the 1989 Yamaha YZ250 coming up here. Hopefully I put the bottom end together correctly and it shifts through all the gears here. So let's take it for the first ride. Well, it doesn't get much better than that. First ride on the 1989 Yamaha YZ250. All rebuilt, and it's running great. Shifts super smooth, has tons of power, doesn't bog, doesn't stall. So I'm guessing those jets in the carb are perfect. Starts up first kick when warm. Brakes are working great. Thing is just mint. And it looks awesome too. We couldn't get much traction because the ground here is completely frozen. There's about an inch of sand, and then it's all ice underneath that and frozen. So as soon as you twist the throttle, that back tire just kicks out and you really can't get any traction. I tried, but yeah, I was just kicking out like crazy. We were able to get going pretty good and really broke this thing in today. And it is just running great. So I am super happy with the way it turned out. We're gonna go back home, check the plug, make sure the jetting is perfect, and then check that oil one more time to see if it's milky. Well, first ride went really well. Let's check over a couple things on the bike, make sure everything's still good. So first thing we're gonna check is the oil. Make sure that's not milky at all. Not milky at all. So oil checks out. Let's check the plug next. See if I can get to the plug through here. All right. Curious to see what the plug looks like here. There's a brand new plug. Oh, it's getting brown. Looking good. We only rode it for probably 25 minutes. Oh yeah, it's changing colors. Looking really good. So plug checks out. That jetting must be pretty darn close. Well, this one is all good to go. Everything works perfectly on it. So this one is complete. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, picking this thing up for 900 bucks, diagnosing it, tearing it all down, and then rebuilding the whole thing and doing the first start and first riding it today. Definitely a very cool looking bike, very fun bike to ride, and I'm happy we took the time to rebuild it and bring it back to life. It was not cheap, but I think it was worth it in the end. So thanks again to Power Sports Nation for hooking us up with the crank rebuild. That was awesome of them. If you guys need any parts for ATVs or UTVs, hit them up. Or if you need your engine rebuilt or crank rebuilt, they do a great job. So thanks again to Power Sports Nation. And thanks to you guys for watching and subscribing. Stay tuned for next video. And until next time, we are out.